Okay, going through the toolbox. A lot of you guys have seen every tool there is, but just grabbing a couple of things that might be not really unique, but you know, just different types of tools that you might or might not have seen. This one and this one's kind of similar. A little bit of a unique tool, and it's becoming more and more popular to have these spring clamps on OEM cars and now also on airplanes, particularly on the Viking. And as you can see, if it would fit in like this, you want it wide open, and then one side will go in here and then the other side will go up here. And it makes for a nice secure way of compressing this type of clamp, and it stays wherever you put it because it's a ratcheting type of deal. And then you can put it on the hose, release it, and there you go. And this is the same thing, just a little bit different design for a little smaller clamps. Okay, there's a tiny little handy tool that not too many people know about. You get this at most auto parts stores, and looks pretty simple, but does a good job. Anytime you want to disconnect a hose on your airplane or while you're building and you don't want it to spill all over the place, this little thing just slides over the, as you can see there's already one on here, slides right over the hose, and you tighten it down on the clamp and it'll stop the flow. Then you can disconnect and do your repair, put it back together, undo this, and just let the flow go again. So nice little tool to have around in a toolbox, not very expensive. You might not have seen a screwdriver this long, and why would you need a screwdriver this long? Well, I'll give you an example, or I'll tell you something about tools. I find working around engines and airplanes that if you have extra long extensions, extra long screwdrivers, and so forth, and let's say you're working up against a firewall and you can't get in there and all that, but if you step back and you look at it and you see that there's a passageway all the way through all the stuff, that if you just had a long enough tool, you can go through all those hoses and all this stuff that's in the way, and you get right in there a lot easier than if you had to actually get your hands back in there. This guy's kind of cool. If you have a hose and you want to squeeze off the flow, that's what this is for. You put it up there, you just squeeze it until it doesn't flow anymore. Keeps the liquid from flowing through the hose. Then when you're done with your job, release it and you're back in business. Something like this, very, very handy for cutting hoses. It makes a nice clean cut compared to trying to do it with a knife or a scissor or something. Once in a while you might need to get a new anvil for them, but you got a piece of hose, you cut it, it's nice every time, perfect, cuts through everything, makes a nice clean cut, and it's straight. Looks very professional when you're done. These guys we use all the time. They're from Oetiker, and they are meant to crimp clamps that squeeze around a hose. And this particular model has a front crimp here, and it has a side crimp here. If you can't get in for the front, you can get in from the side. So very handy if you're using a lot of these crimp clamps. We use them all the time. They're very secure. They're kind of a throwaway clamp, but very, very nice to use. You do need the right size for the hose, but once you get used to using it, it's superior to any kind of like worm drive or screw clamp. And think a little bit about which direction you would want the bulb on the clamp if it matters to you. So like away from the floor of the airplane or other clamps or something like. We wouldn't want to put it over here because it might be in the way of this clamp. And then squeeze the pliers. Now, You don't necessarily have to squeeze it all the way shut. It depends on what diameter your hose is on the outside that you bought from the fuel from your auto supply store. Removal of these clamps. If you look the way that they were crimped, there are two little grabby things coming out of the holes in the clamp, and then there's a third one all the way down at the end. That one is bent in one direction. Now you want to put your pliers, your small diagonals, right underneath the overlapping part of the clamp, like right here, and then right on this part that's bent, so that you'll straighten it at the same time as you squeeze, and that'll just peel the clamp right off like that. Then you can just pull it off like that. It's a little bit cleaner doing it that way than using the brute force thing.